Alright, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been doing a series of video presentations based on the PowerPoint slides for Murox HTML5 and CSS3 4th edition. This is one of the two textbooks that's used for the Rankin Technical College AWD Application and Web Development 1000 Web Development Technologies class. And so far, I have gone through Chapter 1, Introduction to Web Development, Chapter 2, How to Code, Test, and Validate a Web Page, and Chapter 3, How to Use HTML to Structure a Web Page, which brings us up to the next three chapters, which are all on CSS. So Chapters 4, 5, 6 are on CSS, and really, so are Chapters 9 and 10. And as we get on, I guess so is Chapter 16. But for now, we'll just keep it at Chapter 4. Again, you've heard me say this before. Now, as Chapter 4 is how to use CSS to format the elements of a web page. I'm not going to sit and read objectives to you. All right? We talk about what CSS is, how it can be applied to a page, why you might want to use one form of CSS over another, and some of the rules regarding CSS. You will not come out of this chapter knowing everything there is to know. All right, let's quickly take a look at the three ways that we can provide CSS. All right, so let's see. I'm going to grab this because it's a little easier than doing it myself. So if you remember, the last time that we were working on this stuff, we had this file right here. It was for the San Joaquin Valley . Then I put some stuff in there about my family. I put a picture of a puppy in there, etc. But I'm going to uncomment this and comment it back in. Let's see. We'll leave that there. And we'll just put it right here. So hopefully you remember this from the other day when we came in and ran this and it looked like this. All right. So I'm going to make some changes here to the San Joaquin Valley Town Hall. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take what I did put in here for an H1, and just for right now, I'm going to comment this out. In fact, I'll comment out the entire CSS that's in here. What does that mean? That means as we go back and look, that's not what it looks like. All right? So the first type of CSS that we'll put in here is we'll put in some CSS. Whoops. We'll put in some CSS, and again, I'm grabbing it from the book. That's called Inline Css. With Inline Css, the idea is you want to apply your CSS to a single element. So what I should have now is just Valley Town Hall. How about we'll just change this to new content. The font size, it should be 5 times bigger than it would be normally, and it should be red. And again, it'll just say new content. So when we run this, there you go. So this is 5 times bigger than this, and it's red. And we put that in right inside of the H1 itself. This is considered the worst way to use CSS because now what you are doing is you are mixing your CSS and right with the HTML. So that's the first way. And I call that inline. The second way is internal. So you put what are called style tags right inside of your head tag. And then you move the stuff up here. So I'm going to say this is for an H1 tag. I'm going to put the same stuff in here that we had basically. And I'm going to say the font size and the color. So I'm saying for any H1, I want the font size to be 5 times its regular size, and I want the color to be red. All right. Now, if that's any H1, that's going to change this one, and it's going to change this one. So let's see if indeed I'm correct. So the new content will be real big, but so will the San Joaquin Valley Town Hall, because this is saying to target every H1 tag there is. So you saw what it looked like, and I'm going to refresh. And you'll notice now both of them are red and 5 times their regular size. Well, what if I only want this one? All right. Well, we can come in here. We can say either ID equals big text. All right. Then we can come in and change this. We can leave that H1 in there if we want. We can say pound big text. Now what should happen is the only one that should change is the first one. And you see that that's indeed correct. Or we could make it a class instead of an ID. And with a class, remember, we use a dot. And you'll notice it doesn't change. But IDs are meant to be only used with a single element. Classes can be used with multiple elements. So I can put class here equals yellowback. I just need a space and then big text. In fact, I can grab one of these paragraphs and also make it big text. That's the that's a class, so it wouldn't work like that. I'd have to come in here and say class equals big text. All right. But now this should be 5 times its size in red. So should this. So should this. Well, and it did not change the paragraph. Let's check why. All right. So we've got here P ID equal pink, class equal big text. Let's grab this ID that's in here now and remove it. Oh, class, we have a space in there. I don't know if that would matter or not, but we're going to find out right now. Well. Because we said just H1s. That's the problem. Now we're saying anything with a class of big text. All right. That should fix the problem that we had. And you can see it does. All right, so that's the second way that we can do that. The third way is to grab that information. I've already seen this. Come out to a file, an external file, and put it in. All right, so ideally, when we run this, nothing's going to change. But I should go back in because I don't want code bloat, which is unnecessary code. So I should remove that style tag. But our screen should look exactly the same as it did previously. And you'll notice when I refresh, it does. So, again, to summarize, the 3 ways that you can put in, the 3 different ways that you can put in CSS cascading style sheet information. Number 1, you can do it on an element-by-element basis, typically referred to as inline CSS. It's considered the worst way of doing it. Ideally, what you want is what's referred to as a separation of concerns, where you don't have your CSS and your HTML mixed up in the same file. Then we went, and in the head section, we put in style tags. It's a better way of doing it than the inline. I refer to this as internal CSS. But it's still bad because we still have it in the same file. Then finally we went and put it in an external file and made external CSS. That's considered the best way of doing it. Now when we did that, we had to link to our style sheet so the system knew that it was there. All right? Okay. Sorry if I got off on a little tangent there, but at least now you've seen examples of each of these. here's the sequence, and it goes, for lack of better words, from a major to a minor sequence. Now, and when you think about it, it makes sense. Anything that you put in an external style sheet is applied first. Then anything you put in what they call embedded styles, or that internal style sheet, would be applied second. And then finally the inline styles are applied last. If it was the other way, these would never be applied. All right. We talked about the fact this is how you add a style sheet. What you're going to see later, and it's not a big thing, but later when we come in and we, as an example here, I just want to show you this. When we come in later and we end up putting in, I don't know right now for sure what we're going to call our, I don't know for sure what we're going to call our gym website, but for now let's just call it gym, J-Y-M. Well, if I can get it there. J-Y-M. What you're going to see is we're going to have, and it'll make more sense as we go on, but you will have a folder called CSS where you'll put your CSS. You'll have a folder called images where you'll put your images. You'll have a folder called JS where you put your JavaScript. There may be additional folders. You don't typically put in a folder called HTML. You just leave the HTML all out here. And we'll see all this stuff later as we get going. All right? They mentioned that you can have two different style sheets. The order here does matter. If there's anything that's been set up in main where the same thing has been set up in speaker, so main.css and speaker.css, any changes in here will overwrite the same changes or the changes on the same element in here. So the order matters. All right. Normalize Dot Css. Well, let's look at a couple of these. First, let's come in and look at Normalize Dot Css. All right, there it is, and we can download it. And there it is, right there. Now, I don't think a lot of it will probably make sense. All right, but it's turning off virtually all of the different browser default settings. So whatever you do is going to look the same on any kind of device. So here's another one. This is the one I typically use, and it's Eric Meyer's CSS reset. All right. It does basically the same thing. But I want to show you kind of, for lack of better words, a before and after picture. All right. What does that mean? Well, you already saw what this looked like. Right. Come on. Right there. Okay. So that's what our site basically would look like right now. Okay. And I'm going to come in here, and where I've got my CSS, right before that, I'm going to put in, oh, not that. Need a new file here. And I'm going to save this right to my desktop for now and call it CSS reset.css. All right. Now I'm going to come back into here, into my HTML file, and I'm going to put another link in here just like we had. Again, the order matters. You want to always put any kind of a reset file in first. CSS reset.css. Is it going to look different? I'll let you decide. All right. Notice we got a little bit of margin here and here, etc. When I refresh, see how it changed? It took away all of the browser defaults. All right. So the idea is, for lack of better words, you're starting with a clean slate when you use this. All right. And it doesn't matter. If we'd have done normalize, it would look pretty much the same way. All right. Common units of measure. As time has gone on, and we talked in an earlier chapter about doing things mobile first, what we do typically today is we don't use pixels like we used to, or points. We use ems, rems, and percentages. These 3 units of measures are what are called scalable users of measure. So as we change the size of our screen, And I don't mean like that, but I mean as you go from a desktop to a tablet to a phone, etc., they scale better than pixels and points do. All right. The HTML for a web page that will have borders. Okay. The only thing I want to mention on this slide is notice, because you're starting to see the HTML5 tags. Header, beginning and end, main, beginning and end. All right. So if you look in here, this is a good job, because what they've done is they have used relative units of measures. In other words, they have used percentages and ems. I don't use rems very often. I just use ems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of this code that's right here, every bit of it. All right, and I'm going to, I think I'm going to end up creating a couple more new files. This code right here, all right, this is right out of the book. I'm just going to call this Murok.css. All right, then I'm also going to grab this code that's right here. And create another new file. I'm going to put that in, but it doesn't have everything that we want. I'm not sure what that is. It has something to do with carriage returns, but I'm not worried about it. So we've got this. I want to come back to my HTML file, wherever the hey that was, and I want to put in my tags that I should have. All right. So there's all those tags, and at the bottom I think all I need is my HTML tag. All right, so there we have it. Now I'm going to remove that CSS reset file, and I'm going to put in here my Murok.css file. All right, and I'm going to save this right here. I don't know, I'm just going to call it Murok.html. How's that? All right. Now, first I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to comment out the style sheet so we can see the before and after pictures of the style sheet. All right. So here it is without the style sheet. Doesn't look, yeah, it's okay. All right. But let's come in and now uncomment the style sheet. All right, come back to our same file and refresh. And you can see it's a fairly marked change. So what did we put in there? We said for our body, which means basically reference the entire page, we said we wanted the font size to be 100%. A left margin of 2 ems. Every em is about 16 pixels. So we want a 32 pixel margin on the left and right. For our heading, we wanted padding. We're going to go over all this stuff. We also wanted a solid black bottom border. You may have noticed that on there. And for our H1 tags, we wanted them to be 200% or double their normal size with a margin bottom of 0. All right, I'm going to just change this from border bottom just to border, just so you can see the difference. And you see it looks the same. Well, wait till I refresh. See the difference? Originally we had just the border bottom. Now we've got a border. All right, you can also see how this thing is another one of those block tags. Goes all the way to the end. The only reason it doesn't stretch to here and here is we put some margin in there. All right, I want to pick it up because we're already at almost 20 minutes and I'm only about a quarter of the way through. I was hoping that I wouldn't have to create any of these where I'd have to do part 1 and part 2, but I may have to here. All right. So here were the relative units. I already mentioned that. That's what it looked like. I made a couple changes. All right, this probably is a good place to stop. I'm 12 slides in, but I'm going to stop with part 1, start up with part 2 in just a moment.